Okay, hi everyone. Um, Thanks so much for joining Caddle today. So we are talking about discount retailers, deep diving into discount grocery shoppers, discount versus dollar stores, opportunities and threats, key takeaways for retailers and brands, all that good stuff. So definitely stay for the whole session so you'll learn all these great insights. As usual, we'll be sending the deck and the webinar recording following the event, so you can reference it for later and share with those who couldn't make it today. So let's just get started. Today we have Caddle CEO Ransom Hawley alongside Camille Kennedy, who is Caddle's head of marketing, and let's have them take it away.
Hi, everyone.
Great, thanks, Elise. So Camille and I will tag team this deck together, and I will kick off. First, we'll give you a brief overview of Caddle. We promise you not to sell you too hard on what Caddle is and what we do, but it's good background. Then, as Elise had said, we've got a lot of great data covering discount, and some early shifting that happened in the pandemic, but really where the data is showing and where we see discount going, understanding the discount grocery shopper, discount versus a dollar store, as well as a few other opportunities and some key opportunities and threats that we've derived from the data that we've collected.
And Ransom will keep us on the pace here, but we've got quite a long deck, so we're hoping to get through it in this session that we have. If you guys have questions, feel free to submit them as we go in the question pane, and we'll be sure to take some time at the end to answer those questions for you. If we can't get to all of them, or you've got a very specific data question, we'll probably do it as a follow-up afterwards.
If I'm taking too long on any slides, I'm sure I'll get an angry text from Camille.
No, that's okay. You talk slow and I talk fast, so I think the balance of it, we're gonna be right on time.
That's it, perfect balance. So Caddle is we're a mobile-first consumer insights platform. We reward Canadians for engaging with brands and sharing their data. And there's a number of different ways in which we can engage. Through video, through survey, through receipt and photo capture, purchase capture, and those types of things. But Caddle has one of the largest panels within Canada, largest daily active panel for 10,000 daily active members, over 100,000 monthly active members, and we focus exclusively in Canada. This is our first party panel that we recruit and manage and engage. As for those who aren't familiar with Caddle, we're quite unique in that we refer to daily active users, which really enables the scale and the speed that we have, so we can help our clients make better decisions faster, which is right behind me. To give you an idea of who our panel is, I gave you an idea of scale, but really scale means nothing unless we have diversity within the panel itself. And we've worked with Environics, and we continue to work with Environics on a number of projects, but we initially ran through some prism profiling. And that's, for those of you who don't know, that's the ability to map everyone in the Canadian population to one of their 68 prisms based on postal code. So we took a week's worth of our panel members and we plugged them into their prism profiling, and we found that we had representation across all 68 prisms just within a week, which one of their SVPs said it was one of the most impressive and largest panels within the Canadian market, which is great. It's great to hear. And the reason I mention that is because anyone in my position would tell you our panel is fantastic. So it's great to have validation of that. Give you the nod, Elise. There it is. I think there's probably a lag too. Okay, so let's jump in. Early on in the pandemic, as I'm sure many of you know, there was a slight shift from discount to conventional. And we say the re-rise of discount because discount has really been growing over the past decade plus. And we did see conventional gain some ground early on in the pandemic. We do see that as a slight blip in the growth, especially with the data we've collected. As well as some of the economic conditions that COVID has really facilitated. But not surprisingly, the reasons that conventional grocery won within the first part of the pandemic is based on really factors that were driven by the pandemic itself. So being able to go in for a one-stop shop, having a larger assortment so they're not having to go to multiple stores. And as you'll see in our data, there's quite a number of people that shop cross-channel for specific items. So really having that one-stop spot to shop with a large assortment, and also there was a higher perceived cleanliness, which led to safety as well. So that overall drove to a share gain of conventional over discount. But we see that as short-lived. You've also probably seen a number of these different headers, and I mean, and there's other channels as well growing similarly. You look at something like Farm Boy, which is exploding, but really there's a wave coming of continual growth behind discount, and from the data that we collected, convenience and proximity, as well as assortment, are drivers secondary to value. But Giant Tiger expanding, and you'll see in the data, and if you've attended some of our other webinars, they really have a very sticky and loyal consumer base who love their store and are massive net promoters, some of the best performing within Canada. And so they're planning to increase. Freshco is planning to expand, and some of their new rebranding as well, and of course Dollarama. Dollarama, while a small portion of grocery, their continued expansion across Canada and their potential expansion within grocery and fresh and frozen is something to watch out for, both across discount and conventional.
Yeah, and we'll dive into Dollar a little bit more later on in the presentation. The focus really will be on discount grocery. And Ransom will explain that, but I was at Giant Tiger yesterday, so I'm out west.
Yes. Yeah, Giant Tiger really is a special place to shop, and they've really nailed that that treasure hunt. And so we see that in the numbers from their loyal shoppers. So we defined discount within this study to encapsulate, beyond just the standard discount. We included Giant Tiger in that as well, but did exclude Walmart. What we did, this data was collected in June, so less than a month ago, and we surveyed over 2,000, was just 2,500 Canadians across the country, focusing on primary grocery shoppers. And so that's all the data that you'll see. It's from a Canadian representative sample, over 2,000. You'll see we've cut the data and included sample, but the total sample was about 2,500, which we collect in about half a day. We have 10,000 daily actives. And so that's where the data is coming out of. So very fresh data from a fairly significant panel of Canadian primary grocery shoppers. Okay, so last slide for me before I hand off to Camille, who will probably outshine me. Her energy is pretty infectious, so she'll probably be higher our engagement rate. I don't even know if you can mention that, but anyway, I'm going to do my best to try and beat her here. What we saw is likelihood to recommend. So your standard NPS score, and we've been measuring NPS in bricks and mortar and grocery e-com on a weekly basis for better part of a year now. And so it's a very rich data set. You'll see sample size of over 20,000. And we ask a number of questions, but this one's pertaining to their likelihood to recommend to a friend and family. If you're not familiar with NPS, it measures the net promoters, which are 9 and 10, and you subtract the detractors. So any number north of 0 is good. Any number north of 40 or 50 is very good. I mean, so all of these numbers are fairly strong. But what we saw is that within the top net promoter scores, you've got Costco, which has a value offering, but falls within club. But you're looking at No Frills and Maxi and Giant Tiger, Dollarama, and Real Canadian Atlantic Superstore have very strong net promoter scores, which means that the people that are shopping at those stores are overall net promoters and strong promoters of the store itself. So this speaks to kind of a good foundation of, I mean, not surprising to anyone on the call, Canadians love value. They love a deal, the amount of volume they buy on deal. Granted, there's been some shifting during COVID, but That's not going to change as economic conditions have put. I think it's about 1 in 4 Canadians are feeling financially unstable, and so that's going to continue to drive decisions.
Yeah, and over the last 12 months, this ranking really hasn't changed much. Costco's been in the lead week over week, month over month for the last 12 months. What was interesting in the fall was that No Frills and Maxi were actually at a bit of a lower rate, but as soon as they implemented things like mask wearing protocols, and safety is a huge issue right now, and reason to shop at a store, including cleanliness and all of that, they actually shot up in their overall net promoter. But the number one factor for the strength of this net promoter score is value. And that's why we're seeing, you know, the discounts in the dollar stores all in the top 6. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into it, but Ransom kind of already mentioned it. You know, discount is really primed to outpace other channels. We did do a comparison, which we'll share later, in terms of current versus future intention to shop at conventional, drug, dollar, and discount. And it's definitely the strongest pace in terms of likelihood to be visiting it with some frequency. So that's exciting. And we're not the only ones that think so. Obviously, we collect a lot of data through a number of different surveys. We also partner with people like on the next slide here, Sylvain Charlebois, who you've maybe heard speak with us before. And we hosted a session at the Shopper Marketing Forum in the spring with him, where we looked at a number of, you know, future of grocery shopping factors. And one of the things that arose out of that data collection was that discount is really king. And, you know, we've been seeing this for some time, as Ransom mentioned. It's not just the discount grocery stores that are, you know, recognizing this trend. When we asked our panel, you know, 70% of Canadians are actively looking for promotions and discounted products and deals. And that behavior isn't going to change regardless of whether they're shopping at a conventional grocery store, you know, or even at club or mass. So, you know, with value being that primary shopping driver across the entire Canadian grocery landscape, we really can see discount being the prime shopping location moving forward. And if we move to the next slide here, we asked our panel again in that data set that Ransom mentioned we just ran a couple weeks ago, and we said, you know, which factor do you consider the most important when shopping for groceries? And you can see right here that, you know, beating out every other factor by 5 or 6 times, good value for price is always number one. So consumers want this first and foremost, and I think that's why this this sort of the offers are really important for not just discount, but for all grocery channels. So if we move on to the next slide here, we'll talk a little bit more about the discount grocery shopper from a frequency standpoint, from an age standpoint, and a few other things that we're going to share with you. So first step, who is the discount grocery shopper? Well, pretty much every Canadian. When we asked our panel, 87% of our panel reported that they regularly shop at discount stores. And I think what was really eye-opening too is the frequency. So 65% are shopping weekly or more. But, you know, nearly every Canadian is shopping there at least a few times per month. And it's basically nobody that doesn't shop there. So we're really talking about the whole population. And if we move on to the next slide here, we'll look at it from a demographic perspective. So I think what's interesting about this is that, you know, obviously the frequency, you know, first and foremost is that people are shopping weekly or more. And you can see that here in the way that we've laid this out from a few times per week all the way down to rarely. But if you start to look at some of the demographics, it's also really interesting because, you know, it's not necessarily every demographic that's going as often. You can see that, you know, millennials are shopping less frequently on a weekly basis than, you know, greatest gen and, you know, some of the baby boomer ages. And so as we start to kind of split it out by age, Ransom, do you have anything else to add on this frequency chart by age?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think that yeah, as we focus on the next generational growth for grocery, I mean, it is millennials and their spending power. I mean, Gen Z is still up and coming, but you'll see here that they're the second largest group, as you've mentioned, represented in that light blue, that are shopping weekly or more frequently.
Yeah. So on the next slide here, we've kind of put it on a spectrum of most frequent to least frequent. And yes, well, we did include retailers like Giant Tiger in this data that we ran, knowing that they're not necessarily the same discount grocery store as what you would consider, you know, a No Frills or a Freshco. But what was interesting here is that Giant Tiger gets visited less often, which makes sense, but at quite a significantly different rate. You know, No Frills shoppers are 53% of them are going weekly or more, and 60% more Canadians are visiting stores like No Frills than they are Giant Tigers. So over 75% of No Frills and Maxxi's customers are visiting at least a few times per month. So the frequency here is really, really high and it's strong. I think what we were seeing with Costco data, if you guys joined our Costco webinar, is that actually frequency went down. People were visiting less often, but spending more in their basket. So it's interesting to see the difference here in terms of these stores pulling people in more often, likely to get the fresh, you know, the fresh produce that they're not able to get necessarily other places, even though Costco is the prime shopping spot for fresh. Ransom, over to you on this one.
So as Camille had touched on, I mean, value is king, and it's not surprising that that's really what drives people to start shopping at discount, but also to stay there. And you'll see there's a slight uptick in some of the changes, and the dark blue is what drove that trial, and the orange is why they currently shop there. So there aren't any major variances here across the board, but this is more to reiterate the fact that value is very important, but what you had seen from Camille was most important. So it was a single select question. In these questions, it was around what's important and select all that apply. So you'll see some of these percentages change, and while you know, value is king at 76%, let's look at why they continue to shop there. 78%. Proximity is important as well. Product availability. So more than 1 in 3 selected proximity. Not really surprising. Convenience is obviously important, and then product availability. So slightly less than 1 in 3 selected product availability, and so we've got a little bit more data on that coming up to highlight potential opportunities to continue to grow and steal share from conventional.
Yeah, and what's also interesting here too is that the close to home. I mean, obviously with Costco winning #1 net promoter and being kind of the fan favorite throughout the pandemic across all the factors, is they're not close to home. So there's an opportunity for discount and to really disrupt kind of the value offering against some of the mass and club and membership channels as well.
Yes, and that's covered a little bit in the opportunities and threats, but also in our upcoming webinar, which I think is going to be the coolest one yet, is about Instacart. And so that's an interesting factor because, I mean, proximity, close to home, it's really centered around convenience. And, I'm based in St. Catharines, and one of our Costco's moved out to Niagara Falls, and we got one in Stony Creek, and we just kind of stopped going. But using Instacart really brings them a lot closer to home with that home delivery. So that adoption rate and some of the data that we've collected to support that webinar is going to be really cool. So that changes the game a little bit. I mean, you've got like hard bricks and mortar locations, but also closing that gap and making things more convenient and more close to home digitally is also an opportunity. That's a good plug for the next webinar. Honestly, I think it's going to be.
It'll be mid to late August, so keep your eye out. We've got a few events coming up in the next couple weeks.
Yeah. So this slide touches on future state, just focusing within these grocery stores and some of the shifting that's going to happen. There aren't any major changes here, but you layer on top of. So these are amongst these discount grocery shoppers, and you layer on top of this some of those expansion stats that you saw with Giant Tiger and Freshco, and then also Dollarama and what that could potentially do to some of these trips. And as you'll see in some of the coming data, there is not surprising, there's cross-channel shopping, and so that's I think the biggest opportunities to capture more of the basket, make things more convenient by making sure you're participating in those digital platforms. Either you're doing it yourself, or advancing click and collect home delivery or participating in things like Instacart as that continues to grow. And the data that we had shows that 1 in 10 Canadians is using Instacart right now. Okay. So we have quite a bit of data, and we condensed it for this the purposes of this presentation. But we identified big spenders and small spenders, but this was one that we wanted to highlight. And so this is focused on, as mentioned before, primary grocery shoppers. This data is looking at the big spender segment, which we define as they spend $750 or more monthly on groceries. If you look at the discount dollar share, it's slightly less than this, as you would have seen in the previous slide, which highlighted that shift from conventional or discount to conventional in the early stages of COVID. Big spenders actually over-index. What this slide is meant to illustrate that big spenders are more big spenders are discount spenders, and of those, their total grocery spend. 44.2 of them are spending more than half of their monthly budget at discount stores. So that's a big number, but at the same time, it also speaks to the fact that there's still a significant percentage that are spending elsewhere. So from a conventional or maybe like a general merchandise or even a club perspective, this is interesting data in terms of, okay, well, how can we make it easier and more seamless to shift this spend from discount to us? But at the same token, there's this deck is focused on grocery, and we've outlined some of those key opportunities. And given the market economic conditions that COVID has kind of paved the way for, it really I think is going to be low-hanging fruit for discount to really start to attract more people more frequently and more of their wallet and basket into their stores. Okay. All right, so we're going to touch on a bit of the pacing. And so we had engaged with our panel members in the study to ask them about their COVID shopping habits and how those are going to be impacted post. So have them do a little bit of prediction post. So moving on to the next slide, it shows that shifting. And so what you see is, and we've got some additional data as well that we can include, but we wanted to focus on the key areas that had some of that shifting, which were the discount and the drug and the convenience. So you'll see discount growing. This is of our consumer base when we asked them total primary grocery shoppers, not just discount focused, where they think they're going to be spending their dollars over the, call it over the next 6 months, 12 months post-pandemic. And we really think that, so there was a shift to conventional. That was a small shift and a small share gain. We think that was short-lived, and also with the data that we've collected, you'll see a significant double-digit growth of people saying they're going to shop more at discount, which I think, with the financial impact, as stated, 1 in 4 Canadians feeling financially unstable, they need to look to ways to help offset that, as well as, and we've all seen the reports, and of course we've seen it on our bills of inflation. So that's all going to take its toll with Canadians' wallets being pinched and feeling financially unstable and inflation. And really, Canadians are going to be looking for ways to help save. And that's a whole big thing to unpack. And we've only scratched the surface here in terms of brand shifting, channel shifting, role of private label, role of what they're eating. So there's lots to unpack here. And we've done some of the clients on the call, we've done a little bit of work to unpack that. But really overall, discount is poised to gain here. And some of this does make sense. You'll see drug poised to gain as well, but really discount is
yeah, and I think drug's interesting because it's certain demographics. It's the Gen Z millennials, I think more millennials, but remembering back to our net promoter score slide that Ransom shared at the start of this presentation, Shoppers Drug Mart has been front runner. I think it's in number 4 spot, but when you look at the demographic breakdown for millennials, it's actually in the 1st or the 2nd spot every week. And it's because of the convenience and the self-checkout factors that, even though they don't have as wide of an assortment, they are having more fresh products and frozen products there as well. So it's really becoming that one-stop shop where you can get in and out quickly. So it'll be interesting to see how from even a demographic perspective that changes. But as you mentioned, Ransom, with things like technology and delivery services getting better and better, that might not be their kind of their winning value for too long.
All right, over to.
So we're going to talk a little bit about discount versus dollar in this next section. And the dollar stores that we asked specifically about were Dollarama and Dollar Tree, just because they're the most frequent. I know regionally there's a lot of other players, but to keep it simple, that's what we focused on here. So I think the big takeaway here for discount versus dollar is just trip frequency is drastically different. Dollar stores are much less visited than discount stores. In fact, 20% almost never go. And when you look at who's shopping there on a weekly basis, 65%, as we mentioned earlier, are going to discount stores weekly or more. But when we look at dollar, that's only about 18% visiting weekly or more. It makes sense. I mean, there isn't as many fresh or frozen foods available there, but people are buying groceries at dollar stores. And I think as the product selection continues to expand, we may see this shift. When we asked specifically about grocery, 38.5% said they do buy grocery products from dollar stores monthly or more. So they are making trips to buy grocery products. But most Canadians are rarely using them as their channel for grocery. However, 64% do report that at some point they have bought from Dollarama or Dollar Tree for groceries. So as I mentioned, there's an opportunity there, I think, from a product selection standpoint.
Yes, I think too. I'll add there. I mean, I think this is a real threat. Although frequency of shopping isn't as high. Dollarama is looking for areas to grow, and whether that's frozen or more fresh, and we cover that a bit in the threats, but it's certainly one to keep an eye on because they've with their store expansion and making it more, knowing that being close to home and convenience is important. This one offering an expanded aisle within grocery, I think, poses a threat to all other players.
Yeah, and I think as we saw the expansion, I mean, sorry, let me start that thought over. When we saw that distance and being close to home is, the second factor that people looked for after value, I think Dollarama with a smaller store format is also, poised to kind of take share from a location standpoint. I have 2 Dollaramas close to my condo in downtown Toronto within like 500 meters. I can get to 2 different Dollaramas, and sometimes if I can't find something at one, it's like a quick hop over to the other one. So yeah, definitely from a geographic perspective and distance from home, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. So the other thing that I thought was quite interesting in this dollar store breakdown was, of all the trips being made versus the ones that were made for grocery purposes to dollar stores, all trips were actually seeing more frequency happen in the younger demographics, the Gen Zs and the millennials. You'll see that up in the top right in the yellow dotted highlight. But when we look at grocery trips, it's actually older and skewing much older and much younger that are going there more frequently for food purchases. And we saw that Greatest Gen was over indexing in their weekly and more than weekly visits to discount grocery stores, so they're shopping more often, probably buying fewer things in each trip. But it's also happening with Gen Zs. They're looking for value, convenience. I think given where they're probably living in urban centers too, there's more Dollaramas close to home.
Okay.
Ransom, I think the section's you.
Yes, this one's me. Okay, so we take a little bit of a look at conventional versus discount and those key drivers and how those change. There are quite a few similarities in terms of what drives that loyalty and that continued shop. So as you'll see here, the graph on the right-hand side is the same numbers that you would have seen early on in the deck in terms of what drives people to continue to shop there. These numbers probably don't surprise anyone, but value for price. So that is still important and core to what Canadians are looking for, and having that the stat that 87% of Canadian primary grocery shoppers shop at discount to some sort of degree. Value is king, and it continues to be king. And we see that accelerating, as mentioned, coming out of COVID. You'll see here there's a shift in the top three, but pay attention to the percentages as well, because this is a select all that apply. And while value is important, 4 out of 10 select product availability as important for them in shopping in conventional, whereas that stat drops to about 3 out of 10, 31%, as you see on the discount. And then you'll see, yes, and then close to home is still important. Convenience is important. It seems like a lot of things are important for conventional. You've got to have great value, you've got to have a good product availability, and you have to be convenient. And then you'll see things as you look down the list, and fresh food availability and how those important things rank. So when you're looking to capture this channel shifting and more basket, and we'll see in some of in the coming slide around, consumers that are, doing a big shop at discount, or using a discount to shop for some items and then using other channels to shop for others. There's a ton of cross-channel shopping. And really there's what this slide speaks to is assortment. And so what you'll see from here is that discount shoppers are really looking for more assortment. And so the question that we asked is, amongst those discount shoppers, specifically discount primary grocery shoppers, is, do you wish there was a larger assortment? And I think it's important as we look at, competing for value in those key messages, and, no frills, and, Walmart showing that they are, voted the best value, save money, live better. I mean, those key messages are obviously critically important and should be the hero messages. But convenience and close to home and product assortment are also important. And so as you're fighting that battle to drive some noise beneath that value is king message, product assortment is important. And so you've got here top 2 box. You've got 21%, so more than 1 in 5 discount grocery shoppers are saying they strongly agree that they had a larger assortment, and that would lend to the fact that they're shopping elsewhere. So if they can do more shopping in that one location, and we know there's a limited footprint that you have within those stores, so there's things that perhaps you could do to maybe shed light on certain areas that maybe are less lower traffic, or expanding that aisle. Maybe digitally on Instacart or direct to home, or things like that, where you can perhaps have an edge and say that you are both value and you can offer assortment as well. This is a slide that I had alluded to on a couple of the other slides, but it's speaking to where people are shopping. And so this is amongst the discount, again, primary grocery shoppers who shop at discount. And the question was, I stock up on certain products at discount grocery stores and purchase the rest of my groceries elsewhere. So you'll see bottom 3 boxes is neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. Those are the individuals that are shopping for most of their products within discount, and they do most of their shopping there. But you've got 18%, so almost 1 in 5 discount grocery shoppers are strongly agreeing that there's some of their shopping in discount, and then also agree. So top 2 box makes up 54% of Canadians. So there's a lot of opportunity to pull from their basket that are shopping elsewhere, and that product assortment, as discussed on the previous slide, is a way to do that by offering, what are they purchasing. And what we don't have in this deck, again, trying to keep it within the hour, is, what are those items that they're purchasing within they're purchasing within discount, and they're purchasing within conventional. So as you look to understand, all right, well, what are these main items that they're going elsewhere to purchase, and why? So that you can really prioritize with that limited store footprint, or with that digital strategy, what are those items that you need to double down on. So we can certainly provide that data and double click on these if there's an assortment study that you're looking to do as well. But really, there's a huge opportunity here to pull over a portion of their shop, their wallet, and simplify their shop by giving them what they're looking for and where they can't seem to find, or at least think they can find within your discount stores.
And just to add to that, one of our research solutions does allow for receipt validation, and we do that on the weekly, monthly tracker that we've been doing for customer experience, where we got the Net Promoter Scores. So of the 20,000 Canadians we've been tracking over the last 12 months, we are validating it by receipt. So there is opportunities to look at basket and get really detailed on product if you're looking to do that with any of the research needs you have.
So the next slide speaks to stocking up, but any generational differences. And so the data points that we have on our panel members, again, everything is first party. So we have obviously generational data, but things like ethnicity, occupation, education, household income, number of kids. I mean, the standard data points, as well as any other data points that we could think to collect through purchase validation or through declared data that we can collect quite quickly. That's the last Caddle plug I think I'll do. But, so what you'll see here is that it still remains true across the Canadian population. I mean, you could slice this by provincially or any of the data points that I just said, but really it is a big opportunity in terms of stocking up, that there is more than half of your discount grocery shoppers are not getting what they need at the discount stores and shopping elsewhere to get it. Okay, I think the results here, so make note of the scale, and so it's between 8 and 10, so all of the results here are actually quite exceptional, and the data is based on the questions that we asked. How satisfied are you with insert one of these discount retailers offering good value for the price paid, and how satisfied are you with insert retailer overall convenience? And you'll see here, overall, it's a fairly strong message that these discount retailers are offering, either a 9 or a 10. But what you'll see, Giant Tiger and Food Basics / Super C, they ranked the highest in both convenience and value at a 10 and 10 for each. And secondarily, you'll see stepping down a bit, Real Canadian Superstore on the bottom right. Scoring high in convenience, but a little bit lower in value, but it's still an 8 out of 10. So overall, convenience and value is still strong amongst the discount shoppers and where they're shopping and how they feel. But there are it's to note that Giant Tiger and Food Basics Super C are really leading the pack in this. Okay. So we're doing good for time, and the last couple of slides that we have are discussing opportunities and threats, and Camille is going to share opportunities first, and then I'll cover off some threats.
Yeah, so I think we've talked a lot about these opportunities throughout the slides that we were sharing, but obviously, if you can't move your location closer to the homes of consumers, what you can do, which was ranking kind of second and third in both discount and dollar factors, was expanding product assortment. So obviously the priority is value, but I think increased assortment is going to accelerate growth and share of wallet. And we're not only going to see that in discount, we'll also see that in dollar, drugstore, and in some of the other channels as well. But definitely for discount, if I was leading the product assortment, that would be top of mind for me. I think the second one is investing in e-commerce. We actually asked the panel a couple of questions about e-commerce. It seemed as though I think only around 25% we're expecting to use e-commerce channels to shop at discount grocery stores, but if provided, there's a really strong interest, especially from the younger generations, to do that. And we've seen that through use of things like Instacart and even a lot of the the new delivery services with Voila and PC Express and everything else. So I think delivery for discount grocery is a huge opportunity, and it's really where the future is headed. So while we might see shop frequency from the greatest gen and the boomers really strong now, as we look to what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, e-commerce is going to be a pivotal part of that. And I think mobile commerce as well, not just e-commerce, but convenience on your phone, being able to click an order and You know, we've seen that with, you know, the click and collect that PC Express has. And then the third one we've identified, although there's more than this, I'm sure, is geographic expansion. And so if you remember back to the headlines we shared, you know, giant tigers expanding across the country. We've seen no frills expand in the last little while, Freshco. And we're seeing now, you know, Dollarama is even expanding as well in dollar. So I think geographic expansion, as well as potentially even some smaller store formats in more convenient, you know, locations that are close to home, will be the biggest top 3 opportunities here. Ransom, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I might seem like one of Instacart's biggest fans, but I think, you know, they're one of the most valuable startups in the world, right? If you can still call them that, valued at 39 billion back in October, I think. So that's climbed since. I mean, the amount of money that they've raised, and they're not exclusively focused, but, you know, focused on acquisition, and the number there, 1 in 10 Canadians now using Instacart, and it's not just for groceries. And when we looked at in that data, and I may misquote slightly because I don't have the data right in front of me, but people were shopping at Walmart, they were shopping at Costco, they were also shopping at Indigo, they were also shopping at H&M. So as they expand their reach, and I think it was number 2 retailer that Canadians were using Instacart for was Indigo. So it's not just a grocery play. So as they offer Canadians ways to shop conveniently and get it delivered to home, and whether or not that is, you know, a surge in use because of COVID and because of not wanting to go to stores, or if it's the way the market is going, you know, we've got some data that does help uncover that, and it really does look like it's going to stick. And you know, actually working with Instacart as well, that's some questions that they're looking to answer. But it really, not playing in this, I mean, this is I think a really easy opportunity, as 1 in 10 Canadians are using this. If I go on and I can see, you know, Real Canadian Superstore, but, you know, Walmart is a prominent player, Costco is a prominent player. There's certainly an opportunity to really, or a big potential threat to not participate in that. And if you don't have your digital game all together, and, you know, delivery to home is a big, hairy challenge. This is kind of a halfway point, and we know that Instacart is there's other options that are available in the US that could potentially come to Canada and should potentially come to Canada. Things like DoorDash, which are focused on, you know, almost exclusively restaurants, but in the US they do more than that in grocery delivery. So it's an area that's going to continue to heat up, and it absolutely needs to be an area of focus.
Yeah, just on that, one of the on the Costco webinar that we had run in regards to Indigo and all of that, what was interesting about the app is they were actually bringing new users to those stores. So I think, like, what's challenging right now is only 1 in 10 Canadians are using Instacart, even though there's a 50% awareness rate. So people know about it, they're just not using it. But as more and more stores come on board, and there's a store they definitely want to shop at in a more convenient way, I think that will only increase. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch the mobile e-commerce space.
Absolutely.
So a few threats, and Ransom, I'll let you walk through these first.
Yes, of course. So we kind of did touch a little bit on this, and the opportunities and threats a little bit blend together. But e-commerce is it's absolutely a threat for discount because of things like Walmart and Costco really doing a very good job at executing. And whether it's home delivery or in-store or participation in Instacart, there's a lot of options for other channels, and it appears that they are outperforming the discount channel as a whole. So there's no evidence of that slowing down, and even things that were initially perceived as prohibitive or potential hurdles, you know, Costco charging a premium on every single product that they buy hasn't really been slowing consumers down from actually using that. So, I mean, you pay about 15% more on Instacart or on Costco.ca to order a product to home than you would in store. And actually, a large percentage of Canadians aren't even aware of that, and those that are aware of it don't really care, and they're willing to trade that off. Now, as things return, like the wonderful Costco sample, and the reason that people go to Costco, and that opens up again, and the treasure hunt, that we'll keep a pulse on how that's changing, but and there still is a deep desire in Canadians to go in and touch and feel, especially things like fresh. But it's a massive opportunity, and it appears that discount is behind in this area, with the exception of what PC Express has done in No Frills and Maxi and Superstore, and the dollar store. So focusing more so on Dollarama, given their scale and their massive market share. This is absolutely one to keep an eye out. As trip frequency isn't that high, it's still high. And there's, if you think about things like a dollar, like Giant Tiger, as those reasons to visit more often, it's not a destination, but they've done, especially Dollarama, they've done an exceptional job at building that basket with items that you wouldn't traditionally buy at the dollar store, and it's been for a little bit of a while now, but they've got, fresh bread. They've, at least the stores that, I think there's probably a dozen in Niagara, they've converted those stores from that normal checkout to walking the gauntlet of bread, of a confectionery, of other things that you might purchase at other stores. So there's certainly a focus there, and as they continue to expand and make it more convenient, and also, without any data to support it, they are, given their proximity, there could be a potential play within Instacart as well. And COVID is a bit of an unknown. So when we're thinking about grocery and the Delta or Lambda, and now, well, Ontario, I think, leads the world in double vaccinations, or close to over 50% double vaccinations, over 80% single vaccination of adults over the age of 12. It's a low threat, but we know that this type of pandemic, and God forbid any other pandemic hits, drives the value temporarily drops as a priority, and it's all about convenience and assortment, one-stop shop, and of course cleanliness and hygiene, as we talked about early on.
So lots going on. If you haven't yet put your questions through the question pane on your GoToWebinar panel, you can do that now. Elise, who is our lovely moderator and Caddle member, team member today, is going to look through the questions, and we'll try to spend the next 10 or so minutes answering as many as we can. If we don't get to your question, we'll follow up offline. And if you have a very specific question about data, it may be difficult for Ransom and I to answer it live on the spot, but we'll try to also do a follow-up on those.
Yes, so we've been having lots of questions come through during the webinar. So if you have any questions, definitely send them in now. But I'll just go through in order as they've come in. So first is a quick one for what is NPS? So in case you missed it during the presentation, I think Ransom, if you want to explain again what NPS stands for.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good note to include that definition in slides moving forward. So NPS is Net Promoter Score, and it's a fairly universal metric used. And I mean, some people argue it's not an effective metric, but it's used universally. So it's one of the metrics that we track, and that's the one that we're tracking week over week over week at bricks and mortar and e-com. And it's a simple question that you ask consumers: and how likely are you to recommend insert product retailer, in this case retailer, to friends and family? And it takes the net promoters, which are those that say 9 and 10, so those that are promoters of the brand, and subtracts, I think, 0 to 6, which are defined as detractors. So if you've got more net promoters that say 9 and 10 versus detractors, which is 0 to 6, then your net promoter is positive, which means you have more people promoting your brand than detracting it. So the higher that number is to 100, the more positive it is. And you saw Costco, I think it's 70 something, which is amazing. And anything really above 40 is very strong. So across the board, amongst Canadian shoppers. I think the lowest was Walmart at 42. Canadians are happy with where they're shopping, but the difference between the highest performer, 72. I mean, you think about people saying, I love Costco, I love Amazon. I mean, that's when you achieve that sort of status, is when you have a net promoter score of 72 and higher. But still, discount performed very well. But
yeah, just to add to that, I remember reading the US rankings for net promoters, so your likelihood to recommend the grocery stores in the US. And I think HEB came in at the top and their score was 52. So I think from a perspective of Canadians liking where they're shopping, it's pretty strong lineup that we have.
Great. Okay. Next question. How are you defining value when it comes to the survey questions?
Yeah, we asked about value for money. At least you can probably answer that one.
Yes, that's right. So for all of our charts, that includes value as a factor, or the slide where we had the value versus convenience and we plotted the retailers. Value is defined as value for price, is what we had asked in the question.
Great. And
Okay.
for those that have to hop off, because I see some people have left, we will be sharing the presentation and the recording. I'm just going to reiterate that because I know we said it at the start. Elise, do you want to go through some more of the questions?
Yeah, so next we have a question on Walmart. How the respondents go to discount stores, was Walmart implied as a discount store? So no, I think we said at the beginning where we define discount that Walmart is excluded because they are considered mass.
Yeah, we excluded them.
Yeah, and we were we helped to define that to the panel members because as we talk about general merch, mass, club, discount, conventional, that's all jargon to consumers. So when we did ask about discount specifically, we defined it as early on as your standard discount channels that we know, like the No Frills, Maxi, Freshco, Food Basics, Real Canadian Superstore. But we also included in there, which would typically fall under general merch, we included Giant Tiger as well.
Yeah, we do have a lot of data and insights on Walmart because they're part of our in-store and online CX tracker. We're also partnering with Walmart, which is actually the next event I think that we have to syndicate ratings and reviews as one of the services that we offer. So if you're interested on more about Walmart, feel free to get in touch with us.
Yes, yes. And then on a similar vein, someone was wondering if Real Canadian Atlantic Superstore was considered conventional or discount. So strictly speaking, they are considered discount. So that's why they are included on our list.
Yeah, and we included that in the definition that they were included as discount to our panel members responding. I think also, as Camille had mentioned, so we've got a panel of 2,500 primary grocery shoppers here, 10,000 daily actives. If there were, I mean, outside of channel, we do a lot of work with our clients to help understand the no frill shopper versus the food basic shopper, or perhaps there's an opportunity to from a shopper marketing perspective, collect some data from a specific retail shopper, even in a specific region, with some specific category purchases. Because of the scale of our panel, which is 3 to 5 times the size of a Nielsen home scan or a Numerator, we have the ability to get quite granular, still having large sample sizes. So the reason I think of that is because if Walmart is a focus, or if even a Farm Boy shopper or an Amazon Prime shopper, people who are looking at using Instacart, for us to really dive deeper into those consumers, it's quite easy for us to do that because of the scale of the panel.
Yeah, a couple more questions here. This is a good one. Do you have statistics on consumer cross-shopping between banners? For example, is a no-frill shopper also shopping at other banners? If so, then what are their top destinations? So this is a really great question. One of our surveys, we actually asked point blank, for all of the retailers, that's included in this deck, whether or not they are currently shopping there, like yes, no. So we can definitely like take another look at that data and follow up with you on that. If you just shoot us an
Yeah.
email, we'll follow up with you. Yeah, we can definitely take a closer look.
Yeah, and it would be in that email if so it'd probably be easy if you said let's look at a no frills shopper and see where else they're shopping. We could probably create a matrix as well to see cross discount where they're shopping. In that one slide that maybe that's the one you're referencing, it's specifically called out discount. So which includes I may shop amongst different discount stores, but still there was a large percentage of Canadians that shopped more than 1 and 2 that shop outside the discount channel in general. But yes, we do have the data to say, all right, is a no frills shopper also shopping at Food Basics?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, this next one is interesting. Could the high frequency of trips to drug be also due to PC optimum points?
Mm.
So
Yeah,
I think, yeah, so go ahead.
that is it's probably a good hypothesis. I don't think we have the data to support that, but so it's just going to sound like a cattle plug, but it's not. If any of the data we collected, we could say, hey, anyone who responded this way, because it's our first party panel, let's ask them. It could be one question. Why is it that you visit Shoppers Drug Mart so much or drugstores so much? And we can follow up with a few questions just to get some certain data points. And why people are shopping. It could also be related to prescriptions in the pharmacy and picking it up. So there's probably a few things in there that ladder up to why they're shopping so frequently. And not every shoppers has or drugstore has a section of the store with frozen and bread and dairy and things like that. So it's not a data point that we collected within this, but it's one that we could figure out quite easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really self-checkout and convenience that we're ranking, although we didn't specifically ask about loyalty points in the Net Promoter Score survey, but we could look back at that data for sure. We're going to be covering some topics around private label, and I think we also wanted to look at other membership cards. We've done a lot on Amazon Prime and Costco if you've joined those events. So feel free to get in touch with us too if you've got specific questions over email. But we could certainly plug this into our daily survey. We run a survey every day to our member base. So anything else, Elise? I know we're almost at time here, so maybe we'll take one more question and then follow up with everybody offline if we didn't have a chance to answer it.
Yes, let me just look through. A lot of these questions, I believe, are answered throughout the deck. So maybe they came in and then we answer them later. So let me just see if there's one that we haven't addressed.
As Lisa's looking at it, I know we're at time here. I think you had mentioned Camille, which is I think an interesting point. I don't know if you're going to kick me for this, but because we have a daily survey that runs, we get 8,000 to 12,000 people responding daily. It's like an omnibus. If there is a topic that it's 5 questions and there are some guardrails to keep it simple and straightforward, if there are perhaps some things that you'd like to uncover now, if we collect that data as part of the daily survey, that data would be available to the public market. But if there's data that you'd like to collect, which could perhaps piggyback on a daily survey, reach out because it is running every day. And if chances are, if it's a topic that's relevant to you, again, it's National Gen Pop Canadian Representative. Chances are other people want to hear about it as well. And it'll be great data to collect and share with our network.
Yeah, if you have ideas, feel free to submit them. I think even through questions that we get asked on this panel, we generally formulate our next pieces of content and our marketing plan. So I know Instacart's a hot topic from our last webinar, but sounds like there's some areas we could dive into for Q4. So thanks to everybody for joining. And if you've got any questions that you didn't ask or that you think of later, feel free to reach out to us. But in the next couple of days, we'll be sending down the recorded webinar as well as the deck presentation. And thanks again, and hope to see you at the next event.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.